Hello, my loves, and welcome to another episode. Today, I want to talk to you about the greatest lever that you have available to you right now to pull to make big change in your life and to see progress happening. And that is, of course, the identity that you need to shift into to achieve the thing that you are wanting to achieve. Not something I have spoken about only once. It is one of my favorite topics, but I wanted to share with you today how applying that identity piece works in different areas of your life, right? So we know that in our business, at who we come to be as entrepreneurs, as founders, we need to step into a higher level of identity to achieve the outcomes that we want, right? We know that strategy is critically important. We need to have a strong foundation in our business, but we need to be able to carry the decisions that we make to create big change. And to carry it, we must be embodying that identity. And so that's not new to me. It's something that I've been doing over the years for many, many, many years. It's something that I've spoken about on this channel, on this podcast quite a few times over, especially probably the last 6 months. But I want to talk with you about how I have recently used that shift in another or a couple of different areas of my life. And you can take what you want from it, but I think it might be really useful. So, the first area of my life is in my fitness. So, those of you who have been around a little while, you know that I have a form of leukemia called CLL, and it really created a different identity to the one that feels true for me. And that is somebody that is, constantly exhausted, who doesn't have much capacity for pushing her body and all of those things, right? So I had been playing it pretty safe with my training. And I was going through these push-pull phases where it's like, I want to train harder, and then I would crash out. And then I'd, spend a lot of time recovering. I'd be in a flare-up. And then, by the time I started to feel better, I wanted to go hard again. And it was a cycle that I'd been in for a while. I was just fighting what I was working with. And a few weeks ago, I made the decision that, you know what, I am an athlete. And I went back and I found a bunch of testing that I did over the years. And, back in my 40s, I was about maybe mid 40s. I remember doing a VO2 max test, and it was around 50, which was elite level. And the scary thing about that is I wasn't even at peak fitness then. I wasn't still fighting then. I was just doing stuff, I was just doing my usual training. And I do remember in the back of my mind thinking, wow, imagine what that number would have been like when I was actually fighting and actually felt really fit. Anyway, so I was thinking about those days and thinking about how I really missed that part of my personality. I really missed being so immersed in what I could get my body to do. And so I just made the decision that, you were an athlete and we need to start thinking like an athlete. And of course, things need to be different now. So back in the day, the longer I trained, the better I got. So I could train all day. I could go and do some stair sprints in the morning, and then I could go and do a swim, and then I could go and do a bike ride, and then I can go and do weights, and then I like want to do a run. So I just could go all day. As long as I had little breaks, I could go all day. And I really miss that. And that I don't know that I'm going to get back there. And that's okay. I don't need to be that person anymore. But I started to think about what's a goal that I can really sink my teeth into and get excited about. And it was that VO2 max number. It's like, I want that number back. I want that number back. And so I spent a Sunday, and I've got this Garmin watch that I've had for, I don't know, I think I bought it in lockdown. So maybe 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I never really pay much attention to the data. Like, this is a sign of where we're at. Like, I use it to check how many steps I've done in a day, which is just wild to me. Like, once upon a time, it was always about my training stats. And it's like, what am I even doing? And so I went in and I did a deep dive into the back end of the platform that is associated with the app. And it's like, well, what is it actually tracking here? And it tracks VO2 max and it tracks variable heart rate and it tracks resting heart rate and it tracks so many different variables that I feel like I'm going to create a set of parameters that I want to, the numbers that I want to see move. Now, is this VO2 max going to be as accurate as doing the treadmill test with the mask on your face? No, it's probably not, right? But what I'm aiming for is progress. I want to see progress. And so when I get it up around that number, I will go and I will do the official testing and see where I'm at. And if I'm not quite there, I know what to keep doing and to keep pushing, and then I'll achieve that number. So it has to look a little differently though, right? So I had to think about that identity of that person that could just train all day, every day. That person was also, you know, like out training a bad relationship. So I had a lot of incentive just to be training all of the time. Like I was in a relationship from hell and I just wanted out. And so those years were filled with that, right? And like I don't feel like that anymore, but I do want to really tap into that athlete. And so I had to sit there and think about, well, what is the identity that I'm trying to step into right now? Which parts am I reclaiming and which parts need to be elevated? And so I came up with this really clear picture of who I choose to be now in that part of my life. And it was really interesting. So I know now that what I'm missing is intensity. So it's not for me about run a certain time for a certain distance, or it's not a goal based, sorry, it's not an outcome based goal in the typical sense, as in run 10K in 50 minutes or, you know, compete in a triathlon again or whatever, right? It's not any of those things. It's like, let's get that VO2 max up. And for me, that's so exciting because I know how I'm going to feel when I achieve that. And so what I was missing was intensity and a little bit of structure around that intensity. So I went and created a program for myself, and it's really basic. It's just 2 or 3 times a week, depending on how I feel. I'm going to push with intensity. So there are some running intervals, there's a few other different intervals, and then I'm also going to I figured out I don't spend really any time in zone three. Spend a lot of time in zone two when I'm walking, spend a lot of time in zone 4 and 5 when I'm efforting, but I don't really spend a lot of time in zone three. So it's like, cool, I'll do at least one steady state cardio in level three. So I learned this on YouTube, but it was so useful to me. It was this person, I think he was a rower, and he was talking about the fitness pyramid. And he was saying that to make like the perfect pyramid, we need to widen the base and sharpen the peak. And back in the day, like when I was fighting, my peak was really high, but I didn't have a lot of foundation. And now I have a lot of foundation, but no peak. And so I really want to focus on the foundation is pretty built, I reckon. But now I want to get this peak happening, which is where my VO2 max is going to come from. Anyway, you may or might not be interested in all the details, but anyway, I love data. I love stuff like that. And so for me, it was like, okay, cool. What I know is I can do these efforts. They don't need to be for a long time. They're about, half an hour. And then it's going to be really critical that I recover, that I give my body the time it needs to rest and recover fully. And there are going to be times when I want to get that optimal 3 times of intensity per week. I mean, old me would want to do that every day, but it's like if I can do that 3 times a week, sometimes it might be two, sometimes it might be one, and that's okay because I don't have a timeline. I just know I'm chasing progress. And so the more I thought about that identity, it's like, I think back to this time when I was sitting at the gym. It was around, I don't know, 2014, something like that. And maybe even earlier than that, but around that. And I remember sitting in the gym and looking around and thinking, I am not the same as other people in the gym, as the other girls. And what I meant is, they all had like proper gym clothes on, and I'm there like a jock, right? I've got two times you running tights on and a race singlet from a half marathon that I'd run or something like that. And it was either that or a race singlet and shorts. And I remember just thinking, yeah, I don't look anything like these people. They look so put together. I always look like I've been dragged through a hedge backwards because I was out of work. And so I remember just thinking, I'm going to order some like proper gym clothes and see how that feels. And I started wearing those clothes and it just felt really comfortable. And it's like, I kind of like this. But now I'm like, no, I'm back to those running tights. I'm back to race singlets. I'm back to the Muay Thai, singlets from the Muay Thai gyms that I've trained at around Thailand. It's like I'm back in my athlete mindset. And that just took an identity shift. And so instead of this whole idea of like why, I'm just so pissed off and frustrated that I'm exhausted all the time and I can't push the way that I want to push and it's never going to be that way again and blah, 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 all that ridiculous noise. Instead, it's like, well, I'm an athlete and I train like an athlete, so I need to recover like an athlete. I don't know, it's just there's more focus on the positives for resting instead of it feeling like a chore to rest my body because it's like I know I'm just recharging my battery so I can go again. And so on the weekend, even just this weekend gone, one of the days, maybe it was Saturday, I went to the gym and I did my usual lifting session. I think it was an upper body session. And then while I was there, I thought I'm going to do my run, my intervals while I'm at the gym instead of I've got a treadmill and a spin bike and a couple of things at home. It's like I'm going to go and do that at the gym. And so I did that and I felt amazing. And I came home and I did my food prep and I rested a little bit. And then I went, you know what? I'm going to go for a swim. So I took myself to the pool. I did about 30 minutes of laps and I came back. And then it was like, I'm going to eat and then I'm going to hit the couch and I'm not going to move. And I also knew the next day was going to be a complete rest day, not even a walk. And I felt good about it. I felt so comfortable with that decision because I knew it was what I needed. If I want to go again, if I want to follow this inspiration of chasing that VO2 max and doing what I need to do, I know that recovery is a part of it. And so it's been a complete shift. And every time I put like a race singlet on, or every time I put a singlet on from one of the Muay Thai gyms, I feel like me. I just feel like me. And when I'm running and I'm running at intensity and I'm working hard, I'm fucking loving it. And there was a moment when I was on the on the treadmill at the gym, and I was working pretty hard. Like I'm doing, intervals where I build up speed and then I build up speed and then I go hard. And when I was in that hard phase, I was so happy. I'm on a high every time I finish a workout. Anyway, I was there and I was just in my mind really focused on my form. And I remember thinking, this is really manageable. I can maintain this. And just those thoughts that came into my head, they were the thoughts that I used to think, right? And it just felt so good. It felt so like putting on an old shirt. I felt like myself again. And so I've been honoring that and it feels amazing. And so that's where I'm using that identity shift to make my life richer, right? And it's easy for me to rest. It's easy for me to eat. It's easy for me to go and do the things that I need to do because it aligns with the identity. And yes, I am tireder than usual. My body is adjusting and all of that stuff, but my brain feels so good. I feel so good in my skin. So I actually went and started a Substack because I came to the YouTubes and it's like, where can I find people, especially women my age, who have been athletes in the past and we want to train for fitness. So here's my rant. You can find freaking 50-year-olds telling you how to lose weight. You can find 50-year-olds who are telling you how to tone and shape your legs and do this little workout. You can find a lot of information on midlife, like from a science-based perspective in terms of, but it's all weight loss. Or you've got to lift heavy, you've got to lift heavy. I fucking don't want to lift heavy. I get injured. And my body is built for speed and it is built to be fast. So I lift heavy enough. I just gave myself permission. I don't want to be the person that lifts 150 kilos on the deadlift because that interferes with what I actually want to do with my body. And so I train weights for the goals that I have, the same way I used to always do it. And then you reach midlife and there's so much information there, your body changes, all those sorts of things happen. And I think we go scrambling for the answers. And because what we used to do no longer works. But you know what? It kind of does. So one of the things that they will tell you in all the bullshit on YouTube, and oh my God, don't even start me about Instagram. But there's this whole movement where it's like we can't train at intensity because of the cortisol and blah, 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 blah. But they're not actually basing that on an individual. My chemistry is different. I'm actually built for high intensity and recovery. I can train like that all day long. My body will return to its natural state very quickly. And so that rule doesn't apply to me. It just doesn't apply to me. And so why the fuck was I following it? And then if we can put aside, okay, so most of it is focused on how we look, right? And if we can put aside, oh, that belly fat's not going to shift if you train at intensity because, cortisol, it's like, but what about my brain? What about if my brain needs that intensity? Because I'll be honest with you, how my body looks is the least important thing for me. It's how it feels. And how do I want to feel? Fast and light and agile. That's what I want. And 150K deadlifts is not going to do that for me. So I lift heavy enough. And then I focus my training on how I want my body to move. And so I see a time in the next month or so where I start to train Muay Thai again. I'm going to go do private lessons just because, again, I've got to manage my energy. I've tried doing classes at nighttime and I can't be training and getting home at 9:30 at night and awake at 4:45 in the morning. My system can't handle it. I need sleep because otherwise my CLL symptoms are a lot worse. And so I've made the decision that, you know what, classes are great because I love working in a class environment. I've also had to let go of the idea of training in a syllabus-based martial arts because they're all at night time as well. And it's like, you know what? What do I love? I love the physicality of Muay Thai. I love training with the right trainer who will spar with me and work me really hard. And that's on the list. So I just want to get a little bit fitter before I go and do that. And that's on the cards as well. And that's just going to add another layer of me feeling more like me. I feel like me when I'm kicking and punching things, when I'm sparring, and I don't want my life to be any different to that. But part of me was in this identity, my business and where we're taking it. I have a role in my company, right? And in the business that I'm launching in the middle of the year. And it does require for me to be more put together, but so much more private than I used to be, right? The businesses that I build are not dependent on me being the face of the business anymore, which I love. And so what that means is part of me was in this wrestle around, but I need to show up and dress well. And you've been down this path with me, right? You know that when I decided to get off social media, then that pressure was off. I can get around in my workout gear all day, every day, And I'm even doing this video today in workout gear instead of putting an outfit on because I'm talking about fitness, right? But this is how I get around every day. And I'm allowed to because ultimately my life is not just about my business. My life is largely about training. And the business is part of it, but it's not my whole personality anymore. Just like fitness isn't my whole personality. I'm just so much more expanded and contrasting these days. And so I just give myself permission to live like this. And this is just who I am. And when it's required, I get dressed and I go and do my thing and do my hair and my makeup and all the rest of it. And away I go, and that's good. But my identity, it was like, well, my identity in my day to day, how do I want to be showing up? And it's like, well, that athlete identity needs to be more in the forefront because I operate so much better. I think clearer. I'm more me. I just feel closer to everything when I'm honoring who I am. So that's one area. The other area is, as you know, I have started a French immersion class and I go into the city every Monday. I sit in I'm in the class it goes for about 90 minutes and I enjoy it. I enjoy being in my beautiful city for a few hours and it's been lovely weather. So I get dressed and I spend some time in the city. I go and do my French immersion. I catch up with, a friend afterwards if that's on the cards. And it feels lovely. I love that side of me. I love that side of me that is investing in culture, right? And I have a vision for who I want to be in that area of my life as well when I'm traveling. And so, as I fully expected, I am struggling in this French immersion. And it's like I'm at the elementary level. So it's beginner and elementary's before that. And I'm finding it tough going. I feel like I'm never going to get it. I don't understand it. I'm saying words I don't know what the fuck they mean. I'm mangling the accent. Like it's a shit show. And I know I'm not the only one because there are people in that class who have repeated the elementary. They're back doing it again. They did it last term. And I remember just thinking, am I going to let this go like I have in the past? Because this is not my first attempt at learning French. And I've tried lots of different methods, and it's like, oh, I'm not letting it go, but it feels really fucked. And so I had this talk with myself, and I reminded myself that, you know what? It's like sparring. Remember when you first started sparring and you were so frustrated and you never thought you were going to get it and it felt so hard and you just felt like every move you made got you hit, you got hit and like my frustration grew so much. And then fast forward, and I was one of the best in our club at sparring. And I remember even fast forward a little bit later, and as I was sparring with my students, and I was the instructor, I'd been training for, I don't know, decade or more by that stage. And I remember, some new students would come along and they were very athletic and they were very aggressive and all the rest of it. And they'd come in and you could see they really wanted to like beat up the instructor or whatever. And everything felt so slow. I could see everything they were going to do and I would wipe the floor with them. And it was like, I remember having a moment during one of these sessions where it was like, oh, you get to see it all, like your instructor saw it all and you're so frustrated. And so it's just natural to me now. I cannot spar for a long time, go to Thailand, spar with the instructor, and I still got it. So it's just innate. It's part of who I am now. I can't forget it. It lives in my body. Anyway, so I'm telling myself that learning French is going to be like sparring. And I'm at that stage where I remember vividly how frustrated I was. And then I sat down, I had a little talk with myself, and it's like, how are we going to do this so that it doesn't feel like fucking torture every Monday when I've got to go and do that class and I just feel so out of my depth? And so I remember I had hired a French tutor. I used Preply or something like that. And that was okay. but there was something, I don't know, I quit, essentially, long story short. Anyway, I got online, I found an instructor, and at the perfect time for me during the day, native French person, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I am going to book 2 classes a week for you so you can help support me while I go through the immersion. I have my first session on Tuesday. It's like, oh, that feels so good. That's aligned with the woman who becomes fluent in speaking French. And the woman that I see traveling around the parts of France that I want to be traveling around in and being able to hold conversations very confidently. And it's like, I just got to get over this hump. And I was able to remember back to, yeah, the times that I have felt confused and felt like I was never going to get something and how I overcame it. And so it wasn't just, I had to make that emotional shift, but I also had to put some practical things in place, which was booking the tutor, finding the right one. It's locked in now. I've got it happening and I'm doing 2 of those sessions a week. So I know that, it's going to still be ugly for the next couple of months, probably, but I'm going to stick with it and I'm not quitting and I'm going to catch up and I'm going to feel like I know what I'm doing in that class. And then I'm not going to feel so overwhelmed when I'm in the class. And so I think that's it. That's all I got to say. So it's like, remember that there is probably one key area in your life where you have a certain identity, right? Whether it's the identity that you've been running for a while, or you're getting ready to elevate, or you have elevated and you're working on embodying that day after day after day, and that's all happening. And then there might be other areas. So it's not unusual, right, for founders to have a lot of focus on their business, especially in those early years. And they're very competent in that area. They feel like they're good at what they do. They feel like in control, right? And it just feels natural. And then there are going to be other areas of your life. So maybe you look at your relationship and go, we need to work on this. Like, who am I in this relationship? What is my identity in this relationship? And if I want it to be better, who do I need to be in this relationship? How do I want it to be? And who do I need to be to bring that into fruition? And I'm a big believer that if you're in a relationship with somebody that you love and there are things that aren't quite right, and maybe you've gotten to a routine or whatever, I'm a big believer that when we work on ourselves, when we focus on what we want and we start embodying that, we don't need to necessarily have those conversations with our partner. We don't necessarily need to talk about, things have got to change. It needs to be like this. We just need to start showing up differently. And then they will often be different because they're taking our cue. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to have a relationship. You do whatever you need to do and have the conversation if you need to have it. But for me, it's like, I know that who I am in my relationship shifts the way it feels. And, when you're in a long-term relationship, my partner and I have been together 13 years this year, and, you evolve and you change and things shift and we grow, and sometimes somebody doesn't grow with us and then they catch up, and then like it's ever evolving, right? It is ever evolving. And we've got to, like our businesses, we've got to work with it, right? We can't just expect that things are going to be the same and stay the same because we're not the same. And so we have to figure out what we want and who we need to be to achieve that. And that comes down to identity. So look at it, right? If I'm talking about identity as the biggest lever. So if you are unfit, if you are overweight, if you are unwell, if you are in any place physically that you don't want to be, you might be telling yourself, the thing that I need to do to get a result is be more disciplined. I need to, eat less, train harder, whatever, right? All the bullshit. And So that you might be going straight into action, like I need to do this. And then what happens is a week goes by and the wheels fall off, and you're like, I'm such a loser. Like I always say I'm going to do this and it never happens. And why can't I do, all that mind drama, right? And that's because you haven't locked in on the identity. So if you're a person that takes impeccable care of themselves in all the ways, it will show, right, in your behavior. And then later on, it will be reflected in your physical being. And so we can't operate from a doing place. We have to operate from a being place. And when we operate from a being place, the doing is so much easier. And so, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Same thing in your relationship, right? If you are somebody, I'm not this person. I was in my 20s, so I know what it feels like. But if you are like the needy, insecure person, then what is what is that dynamic going to be in your relationship, right? Think about it. But if instead you are independent, you know you're the prize, you're okay either way, and you're focused on yourself and living your best life, and you just happen to have a partner that's, and you want to be with that person, then that person is going to be responding to how you show up. If you're insecure and desperate and you think, they don't love you enough or whatever, then it's going to manifest itself in an imbalance in your relationship. Nobody wants to be with somebody who is insecure and doesn't love themselves or feel confident in themselves. Nobody wants to be it unless they're a narcissist and they're controlling you. But like in a healthy relationship, your partner wants you to be comfortable. Your partner wants you to be really happy in your own skin. Your partner wants to know that they add to your life and together, things are better than them feeling like they need to feed a never ending pit of insecurity. Like nobody wants to be in that. So who do you need to be in your relationship if you want to be an equal and you want to be in this position of, I'm in this relationship because it works for me and because things are better, not because what if they find someone else, or well, I don't want to be on my own, or what if I don't find someone else, whatever, right? So you've got to really think about the behavior that you're exhibiting in those areas of your life that aren't working the way that you want them to. And then ask yourself, what is the identity of the person that is carrying out these behaviors? And is this ultimately who I want to be? And if I want a different outcome, if I want to behave a different way, who do I need to be? So focus on the being, be clear about who you want to be, set your standards, set your boundaries, have a clear vision of how that person will operate, and then start the doing from that place. Anyway, that's all I got today. I will see you next week.